and welcome to Everyday Board Games. I am your host, Daniel.
And I'm your host, Daniel.
And today we're here with a review of Boxtop Pinball Haunted House from Pandasaurus Games.
And with this one, most of our reviews have been games that have been provided to us. This one was I paid for, pre-ordered, and played, and had a blast with it.
Yes. So, I mean, you're already kind of saying your review. We're going to get into more specifics on here.
I could give my review. We take our bias out of our review.
That's true. So, for those of you who are not familiar with the way we review our games, we have 5 criteria. It's called our G.A.M.E.R criteria. We'll break them down into more details later on. But each of us can give 1 point per each of those 5 criteria, giving the game a 0 to 10 scale on how good the game turned out to be. Now, with that being said, again, you bought the game. This was not provided to us from Pandasaurus. We did see an early version of this back at the Gamma Expo in 2024. That was back in March, I believe, or February, somewhere around there. And we did get to see it then. We were pretty excited.
When we saw it, we got really excited.
We got very excited. So now let's see how it meets our criteria. But before we get into the criteria, though, let's talk about how it plays.
All right, so the way this one works is if you ever played Ice Cool in a sense, you're using everything that's provided inside the box, including the box, as your pinball machine. What you're going to do is you're going to set up the 3 boxes to make 3 layers, and you're going to put little characters on those as well. And just like in other dexterity games, you're going to flick dice down, and you're trying to score points. The dice, you're going to have a total of 6 dice, but you're only going to start with 4. Depending on where you land, like in pinball's machines, you can get bonus dice.
Yes.
So it allows you to have more shots. I like the fact that you're able to slide things around as well to line up your shot. You're trying to get sets of monsters, you're trying to get points, and you're trying to get into the bonus section, and you're trying to get into the multiplier sections, because you're trying to score as much points as possible over 3 rounds to be the winner of the game. That is straightforward pinball in a box top. So
yeah, it's pretty wild how they do it. They have a 4th box as well that counts as kind of like the little coin slot, but that's the platform that you flick your dice from.
On, yep.
So let's talk about this game. The first one is game immersion.
And when we're talking about that, is the game fun to lose? Is there player interaction, whether it's table talk and role playing, and as well as memorable moments? Now, I have played this a couple of times already now. It really, this is probably by far the easiest Daniel for me, because 1, the game is very fun to lose. I've lost both times I've played this game out of the box. There is player interaction more along the lines of the joking and yelling at each other, because you're the one thing we didn't mention in the top of the thing, there are holes in the boxes, so if your pinball, your die goes through the hole, you're not going to score any points, and people can knock you into those holes. Yep. And I like the fact that there are landmines, basically those traps right near the multipliers. So you're trying to get to the multipliers, and people are trying to knock you off those multipliers and into the hole. This way you're not scoring. So there's a lot of shenanigans on that one in the player interactions. Divorces may have happened because of this game. But no, it is fantastic. It leads to a lot of memorable moments, like especially if you make an incredible shot and everybody's just like, whoa, how did you do that kind of thing? I was aiming for this, and I knocked that monster and that monster and that monster all in one shot. That's amazing. So yes, this is the easiest Daniel for me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the game is fun to lose. There's a lot of interaction. Beautiful, memorable moments. I mean, it's just... It delivers on exactly the promise you thought it would give. Like, so it looks awesome on the table. Flicking the dice down there, like every single one everyone's watching every player's turn just to see what's going to happen. It's awesome. Yes, game immersion, huge Daniel for me.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
All right, now we have art and production, which art and production talks about first the art, the graphic design, and the pieces and components. Like, this hits all 3 of those easily. First off, we have the art. The art is this like cartoony, almost like comic book style haunted house. Everything is super colorful, super vibrant. All 3 of the main characters, the witch, the skull that's on fire.
That's Medusa.
Okay, so Medusa, Bob, and Frankenstein, right?
Mm-hmm. Or Frank.
Frank. Yeah, those 3 characters are just absolutely hilarious on the screen. It feels like a pinball, right?
Yeah.
the box top on it, like all of the boxes that you lose that go down, those are all well made.
Mm-hmm.
The graphic design is very clear. The only slight little quarrel that I might have is that since the dice are curved, they roll really well, which is good. But on the other side, sometimes if it might almost be on the line, you're not always sure. But really, it's just like, if you're not sure, it's on it. Like, it's...
Yeah, it's not that.
Say it that way. It's not a big enough deal. But that's the only quarrel I have with the production. I wonder, though, how long, like, the parts where you have to slide in, like, the little side walls.
Yeah.
I wonder how long those are going to last. But for right now, it seems to be good quality, really thick cardboard, good piece of components, and a really cheap price, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is the thing.
This sells for $30 MSRP. Really good deal. Oh, my goodness. So big Daniel for me.
Yeah, it's a big Daniel for me as well. Like you said, the art is fantastic. The pieces and components, I only have one slight little gripe. Like you, I'm interested how long the cardboard is going to last, putting the walls in. And it's just that sometimes the very smaller piece is going to be a little bit warped. It's easily fixed by just putting a heavy book and just letting it sit like that to get the...
Oh, yeah, one of the boxes.
The bottom box is a little warped. Yeah. Other than that, it's fantastic. And the best way to compare this to, and a lot of people compare it to, is tumbling dice.
Mm-hmm.
The price point, it gives you what tumbling dice does with a little bit more steps and a little bit more fun and shenanigans based on like Bob and Frank and Medusa trying to get those sets of them. Is also the fact that this is $50 cheaper than the cheapest version of tumbling dice that you can get. This is a $30 game.
Yeah.
And it's through the roof on the art. The production value is good. I like the fact that it's wood dice, so it's easier on the cardboard as you're flicking it. It's fantastic. It's an easy Daniel for me as well.
And even the box that you flick it from, we didn't say that they like graphically it has the buttons on the side and a coin slot on the front. Like it looks like a pinball machine.
And they all line up too from the side, so it looks cohesive.
Yeah, it's silly. Get me all excited. I want to play it some more. Meaningful choice. Here we go.
What we're talking about that is impact on other players, the depth of strategy, tactics, or skill, and do arbitrary choices in AP make an impact on the gameplay. And honestly, I'm not going to behoove this fact. It is getting a Daniel from me on the meaningful choice too, because the main thing is you need to have good tactics and skills when it comes to a dexterity game, and this one has that. You have to know how much power to flick, if you're aiming, how you aim your shots and stuff like that. So there is a lot of tactile skill in this one based on your flicking. I've seen people that just flick it to try to hit one of the monsters, hit the monsters, even if they go off the board, that gives them 10 points. So they sacrifice the fact that they're going to get points based on the thing to make sure they hit the monster because it's on the bottom level. Yeah. And it's like, okay, I'm going to hit this enough power. It might knock my die in the hole or off the board, but I'm going to hit Bob. This way I can get my 10 points at the end of the round.
Yeah.
So it has a lot of that strategy where you have to think about that aspect of it. There is really no arbitrary choice in here because you're deciding where it's flicking. The only arbitrary thing that happens in the game is depending on what the dice comes up, and that's what's going to be your points if it stays on the board. Because you only have 1, 2, or 3. That's all the points. There's no 4, 5, or 6 in this game. It's either going to print a 1, a 2, or a 3. And wherever you land in the bonuses and so forth. Yeah. Other than that, there's no arbitrary choice. There's no AP.
There is one other level of arbitrary choice is the clue, is the little...
Oh, tokens. Yeah, getting the clue tokens, getting them, because they're randomized on the board.
And
but those only happens at the end of the game.
Yeah.
But that is a choice for you, too, is to try to flick those off and try to get your points that way instead of going after the monsters and stuff like that. So there is a lot of impacting on other player strategies. So you're like, oh, I know someone's going after Bob. Oh, God, I moved Bob further down for them by trying to go over here. So you can impact other players without even trying to impact other players by moving something they're purposely trying to go for to get their points. And so I love every aspect of that. So this is an easy Daniel for me as well.
So where I'm coming at this, even though there is quite a bit of random, like I said, one of the games that we played, I had a single one of those victory point tokens, and it was like one of the lowest ones. It was only 2 points where everybody else was getting like 13, 15 points, whatever, on those. And I got hosed pretty bad on that. But, so that's a little random. And, of course, whichever face your die lands on, that's kind of random. It's 1, 2, or 3 points. But here's the difference, right? back in the day when when pinball was just starting to come new, gambling was illegal, right? And they thought gambling or pinball was a gambling game. They thought it was like a pachinko machine, right?
Yeah.
Until like there was actually a court case where somebody played pinball in the court case to show that it is a game of skill and it is a game of high scores, and the better you are at it, the better you do at the game, and it's not just random. It is a game of skill, and therefore it was allowed. That's a long tangent to say the same thing, that this isn't just an arbitrary game. Your tactics, if you're rolling better than me and you're getting those random portions, well, the way I keep you from doing that random is having a better skill and making your die a 0 by hitting it off.
Yeah.
That's my strategy. Now, that means, well, what if you and me are playing by just us two, right? And I play the turns after you, then if I flick off each one of your dice, then I hose you and get you out of the things. Not necessarily, because you have the first opportunity to go for the characters and the clue tokens.
Yeah.
So you still have something you can do, and if you see that I'm just trying to eliminate your dice points, then you can go for the tokens and the other stuff on top of it. So there's some interesting give and take in this, more than you would have expected from something that is seemingly as random. So this gets another big Daniel for me.
And one thing I failed to mention, we forgot to mention in this one too, is that they have a rule in here, is if it's your shot and your dice either knocks into the monster or your dice knocks into the clue token, you get it. So if you say, I knock his dice into it because it was my shot, it's considered my hit, so I get the points based off of that.
Yep.
It doesn't give you any points, it gives me the points because I used my die skillfully to get me the points by using your die to do it.
Or probably luckily, but still.
But I like that fact.
It was your ability that did it. Yes. Cool. Last one, or the next one is ease of play.
And when we're talking about this is simplicity and familiarity of the mechanism, the likelihood to get to the table, and it is easy to learn, understand, and or teach. Another real easy Daniel for me, because Boxtop Pinball, it's in the title, and everybody's like, excuse me? And when we heard about Boxtop Pinball, I went over and talked to Pandasaurus when we had the open expo at the G.A.M.E.R expo, the media and reviews and stuff like that. I'm like, hey, Daniel, you need to come over here and check this out. Because I knew you were going to fall in love with it as much as I fell in love with it when she explained it to me. And you're like, oh, what's going on over here? And she's like, oh, this is our Boxtop Pinball game. And you're like, sold, here's my money.
I'm in. Yep. Cool.
So
that's all you had to say.
Right there, simplicity and familiarity of the mechanism. Pinball and dexterity games in general tend to get played pretty well, especially when it comes to just flicking dice or just flicking games in general. Likelihood to get to the table, Boxtop Pinball. There you go. Is it easy to learn, understand, and teach? I was able to teach this in 5 minutes, and everybody's like, okay, I get what's going on here.
Yeah.
And I do like the fact that you can move that slider box to line your shot a lot better. You're not beholden to the beginning. That is really good, too, because it's like, you don't have to stay there. You can move it over here as long as it's lined up to the box. Once I teach people that, or told that people that, it was a foregone conclusion. They were lining up their shots left and right. So it is ease of play. Fantastic. Another easy Daniel for me.
I always like to see a game like this where you think, can somebody learn it by watching other people play without any context or anything? And absolutely they could with this. Like, if just by us watching it, we understood 90% of the game by looking at how the setup of it.
Yeah,
it made perfect sense to us. We're like, got it. Yeah, no, that all makes sense mostly. You know, we've seen games like this. We've seen other ideas. It works incredibly well. So ease of play. I'm not even going to belabor it. Daniel for me.
All right, and finally, replay value.
Okay, replay value. Here we go.
All right, this means the length of time it's scaling well, the minimum number of plays for the full experience, and the expandability, already existing expansions up to one future expansion or expansions that are confirmed by designers or publishers. This one is where I kind of hem and haw with, because the length of time it's scaling well. It is a quick game, so it scales only up to 4 players. You can play 2 to 4. So it plays quickly. It is a fantastic game, and you can get bonus shots. So it gets that point for me as well. The minimum number of plays for the full experience, nothing really changes as you're playing it, other than Bob and Frank and Medusa are just moving around the board depending on where they get hit. So that doesn't change. The expandability, I think I am going to give it on this one because if you look at Board Game Geek, there is another version of it that they have announced. I think it's Las Vegas. So there is something like that. So it is integrated. It can be integrated, I'm assuming. We'll see what there it is. So I'll give it that. So, but this is the one that is the slightest of Daniels for me. It's like it gets 2 of the 3, but just barely.
I've never considered sequels to be expansions, so this does not get a Daniel from me. It scales perfectly. It's exactly what I want. Perfect amount of play. But I mean, even the fact that like we talk about like when I play it the first time versus the second time, third time, how many times are those different before I experience the whole thing? You get that before the first round. Mm-hmm. So once you've played a full round, you have the full experience. So really a full game is getting 3 full experiences back to back. So it's not, there's no minimum number of plays is a third of a game for this, which is one of the few that do that. And then expandability, I don't consider that an expansion. I don't think it's going to be an add-on. I think it's literally just going to be another set, which I don't think there's going to be any kind of cooperation. I mean, like not like pinballs could be combined together anyway, right?
Yeah.
And nor should it be. It's just it doesn't get that because of the replay value, other than just it being really scalable.
It would be kind of cool if they got a license for this, like a Terminator pinball,
Boxtop man, pinball. Don't you start with that. But no, this is the only one I can't give it the point for.
All right, with that being said, like I said, it was the kind of iffy on me, and it may change later on down the road depending on how things go. But right now, Boxtop Pinball Haunted House is one of our highest rated games with 9 out of 10.
Good job. So we hope you enjoyed our review today. If you want to check out any of our other content, look at all of our Instagrams, YouTubes, Twitch, all that stuff. We have a whole bunch of content. Check out anything else that's part of Everyday Board Game Podcast and channel. Yep. So we want to thank you so much for tuning to the Everyday Board Game Podcast. I've been your host, Daniel.
And I've been your host, Daniel.
And we want to thank you for listening to Everyday Board Games.
And remember, every day is a good day for board gaming.